The irony is, of course, is that the very word vomitorium, which was so key to this efficient movement, became associated with something entirely different. The true beauty of these architectural solutions in theaters and amphitheaters is their practical elegance. They weren't built for a sensational act of purging. They were built to facilitate the dignified and safe movement of enormous numbers of people. It's a quiet brilliance that contrasts sharply with the flamboyant, yet fictional narrative of Roman gluttony. It's a reminder that sometimes the real story is far more impressive, even if it's less dramatic than the myths we tell ourselves. You almost want to shout it from the rooftops. It's for exiting, not expelling. But you probably shouldn't. It's late. The common historical fact is that ancient Romans placed a very high value on personal hygiene and public health, constructing elaborate bath complexes, thermae or balneae, that were central to their daily lives and societal well-being. These baths were not just about washing. They provided facilities for exercise, massage, socializing, and even intellectual pursuits, often housing libraries and lecture halls. The very idea that a society so obsessed with cleanliness and physical conditioning would regularly engage in self-induced vomiting as a common practice, let alone build special rooms for it, fundamentally contradicts their known values. They were clean freaks, not purgeaholics. There's a big difference. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're getting cozy, let me know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is for you. You move through the various sections of the baths. First, the apoditerium, the changing room, where you shed your clothes and leave your belongings in niches. Then, perhaps, a stint in the palestra, an open-air exercise yard, where you might see men wrestling, throwing javelins, or simply stretching. The feeling of physical exertion is invigorating, a natural way to stimulate the body. You can feel the warmth building in your muscles, and the light sheen of sweat on your skin. They definitely knew a thing or two about working up a good sweat, which is a very different kind of internal cleansing. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Next, you enter the tepidarium, a warm, moderately heated room designed to prepare your body for the hotter chambers. The air is humid, gentle, a soothing transition. You recline on a marble bench, feeling the tension begin to melt away. This methodical progression through different temperature zones was believed to have therapeutic benefits, opening the pores and promoting circulation. It's a deliberate, slow process aimed at relaxation and bodily health. No sudden shocks here, just a gentle ease into the next stage of purification. You settle into your favorite spot. The soft glow of your screen painting shadows across the room, and you feel a strange anticipation. Tonight, you're not just listening to a story, you're stepping into a time machine. And our first stop is a place you think you know all about ancient Rome. But we're not going to talk about gladiators or emperors just yet. Oh no. Tonight, we're going to tackle the Whispering Myth, a story that has clung to the mighty Roman Empire like a stubborn stain, passed down through centuries, despite being, well, utterly wrong. You're ready to peel back the layers of misconception, aren't you? You feel a slight tingle of curiosity, a desire to know the real story, even if it means letting go of a wonderfully salacious idea. Then comes the caldarium, the hot room, often featuring a large, steaming pool. The air is thick with vapor, and the heat penetrates deep into your bones. Here, you would sit, sweat profusely, and then often scrape away the sweat, dirt, and oil from your skin using a strigil, a curved metal implement. You can feel the satisfying sensation of purification, of cleansing the body's surface. This was their method of deep cleaning. Not anything involving an internal upheaval. It's effective, if a little scrapey. You definitely wouldn't want to forget your own strigil. Awkward. You picture yourself walking through the cobblestone streets of Rome, the clamor of the forum echoing around you, the scent of baking bread mingling with something less pleasant from the bustling markets. The sun, a warm Mediterranean embrace, beats down on your face. You pass grand temples, towering aqueducts, and the impressive, imposing arches that seem to defy time itself. And then someone whispers the word vomitorium. Immediately, your mind conjures images of extravagant banquets, plates piled high with roasted peacocks and dormice, streams of expensive wine, and then a hasty retreat to a designated room for a brief, somewhat dignified, act of purging, followed by a triumphant return to the feasting table, ready for round two. It's an image of unchecked Roman excess, a society so wealthy and so self-indulgent that they built entire rooms just for this specific purpose. You can almost hear the satisfied sigh of someone who has just made room for another plate of honeyed pastries, and perhaps a subtle burp. An obscure detail about Roman health practices often overlooked in the sensationalized stories is the widespread use of various herbal remedies, enemas, and emetic substances to induce vomiting in a strictly medicinal context, under the guidance of physicians, and not as part of a routine social indulgence. For instance, specific herbs were known to induce vomiting or act as a laxative, but these were used for treating specific ailments or digestive issues, not for recreational purging to continue feasting. These were medicines, often unpleasant, administered when genuinely ill, not party tricks. It's like taking a prescribed cough syrup versus chugging a bottle of syrup for fun. One is therapeutic, the other is just sticky. This vision, this widely accepted fact about Roman vomitoriums, is a common historical misconception. The common historical fact is that the ancient Roman vomitorium was not a room for purging. It was an architectural feature in theaters and amphitheaters designed for efficient mass egress, allowing large crowds to exit swiftly. Imagine a colossal stadium, packed to the brim with tens of thousands of cheering spectators. When the games are over, or the play concludes, how do you get everyone out without chaos, stampedes, or a truly epic traffic jam of sandal-clad feet? The Romans, master engineers, and practical problem solvers created a system of wide, vaulted passages and staircases that allowed people to spew forth from the interior of the building into the outside world. The name itself, from the Latin vomere, meaning to spew forth, or to disgorge, refers to the rapid discharge of people, not food. It's like the architectural equivalent of pressing the eject button on a crowded CD player. But for humans, much more civilized than it sounds. You ponder this distinction. It highlights the vast difference between a controlled medical intervention and a casual social habit. The Romans, like many ancient societies, certainly understood the use of emetics. Hippocrates, long before the Romans, even discussed them. But their use was typically associated with purging the body of perceived harmful humors or poisons, or relieving severe indigestion. It was a treatment for illness, not a lifestyle choice for gluttony. The mere existence of emetics does not imply a culture of recreational vomiting at feasts. That would be like saying because we have laxatives, modern society regularly throws poop parties? No, thank you. You stand at the top tier of the Colosseum, the vast arena stretching out beneath you, the roaring crowds, the gladiatorial combatants, the exotic beasts, all of it creates an overwhelming spectacle. But as the day winds down and the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the arena floor, you notice the architectural genius at play. You see the multiple arched exits, strategically placed around the massive structure. These are the vomitoria. They're wide, almost cavernous passages, leading directly from the seating areas to the exterior. There's no hint of anything less than efficient crowd control. No signs indicating purging chamber this way. No peculiar drains or plumbing fixtures that suggest anything other than the rapid flow of human traffic. It's a marvel of ancient urban planning, designed to prevent bottlenecks and ensure the safety of hundreds of thousands of spectators. They were less like a bathroom break station and more like a high-speed human conveyor belt. Much less glamorous, but infinitely more sensible. Historians still debate the true influence of specific Greek medical theories, particularly humoral theory, on the practical application of Roman health and dietary practices. While Roman physicians often adopted Greek concepts, the extent to which they integrated ideas like therapeutic emetics into the daily lives of healthy Romans, beyond treating illness, remains an open academic question. Did the average Roman understand or even adhere to these complex medical ideas in their personal habits? Or were such practices reserved for the truly infirm and under strict medical supervision? The precise blend of folk remedies, empirical observation, and formalized medical theory in Roman daily health routines is still a nuanced subject for scholars. You wonder if they had ancient medical YouTubers giving out questionable health advice. Probably. You feel a subtle shift in your understanding. The mental image of toga-clad Romans leaning over basins, politely clearing their stomachs, begins to dissipate like morning mist. It's replaced by the far more prosaic, yet undeniably impressive, reality of Roman civil engineering. They weren't just about conquering lands, they were about conquering logistics, making their vast urban centers function, and ensuring public safety, even if it meant giving a rather dramatic name to their exits. It's a common trick of history, where a word with multiple meanings gets latched onto the most sensational one. It's almost as if someone way back when thought, you know what would make this story about Roman decadence even better? If they literally threw up to eat more and then called the room for it. A vomitorium. And then it just stuck. After the caldarium, you might move to the frigidarium, a cold room with a refreshing plunge pool. The shock of the cold water, after the intense heat, is invigorating, closing the pores and toning the skin. You emerge feeling refreshed, cleansed, and revitalized. This full cycle of hot, warm, and cold was believed to be incredibly beneficial for overall health, promoting circulation and physical well-being. It's a holistic approach to bodily care, integrating exercise, heat, and cold, all designed to make you feel your best. And nowhere in this carefully orchestrated sequence is there a designated pit stop for vomiting to make room for more food. It would be entirely counterproductive to the entire healthful experience. An obscure detail about the true vomitoria is that their design often incorporated gradual inclines and declines, along with specific width variations, to manage the velocity and density of the exiting crowd. Instead of just being straight tunnels, these passages might subtly narrow or widen, or have slight ramps, to help regulate the flow of people, preventing them from rushing too quickly or jamming up. It was a sophisticated understanding of human movement dynamics, applied on a monumental scale long before modern crowd control theory existed. They basically had human traffic engineers before they even had traffic lights. Pretty impressive, right? If only they'd applied that same genius to, say, their public sanitation. But that's a story for another night. You consider the social aspect of the baths. This was a place for discussion, for making deals, for catching up on gossip. It was a space where the body was attended to, but also where the mind was engaged. The cleanliness of the Romans was legendary, not just personally, but publicly, with their elaborate aqueduct systems bringing fresh water into the city and their impressive sewage systems carrying waste away. This dedication to public and private hygiene directly contradicts the idea of a casual, institutionalized practice of purging. A people who built such sophisticated drainage for waste would not then intentionally engage in messy, unnecessary self-purging as a regular social habit within their elegant dining spaces. It just doesn't compute. It's like inventing the dishwasher but then eating off the floor. You realize that this level of detail highlights the Roman engineers' dedication to practicality. They weren't just building big, they were building smart, anticipating problems, and designing solutions that would serve their citizens effectively. It wasn't about indulgence, it was about efficiency and public order. You can almost hear a Roman engineer proudly explaining, "See, the slight incline here creates a natural slowing effect, preventing a pileup at the archway." Ingenious, isn't it? And you'd have to agree. And you might even see some Romans receiving massages with scented oils after their bath, or lingering in a quiet corner to read. The overall atmosphere is one of disciplined relaxation and mindful self-care. The notion of a vomitorium as a purging chamber seems completely out of place in this environment, a jarring, illogical disruption to their carefully curated routines of health and wellness. It's like imagining a modern gym having a designated pizza stuffing and regurgitation room. It makes no sense in the context of health and fitness, unless it's a very specific kind of gym. Historians still debate the precise origin and widespread dissemination of the vomitorium misconception. Was it an honest mistranslation by an early modern scholar? A deliberate exaggeration by an author seeking to paint Romans as overly decadent? Or a gradual conflation of different historical accounts? The question of how such a specific and memorable piece of misinformation managed to permeate popular culture so thoroughly, eclipsing the truth, remains an intriguing area of academic study. You wonder how many other common facts about history are actually just really good stories that stuck. Perhaps your own historical knowledge is riddled with such charming inaccuracies. The sensory details of the baths are rich and encompassing. The feel of hot steam on your skin, followed by the bracing cold, the smell of clean water and fragrant oils, the sounds of laughter, splashing, and quiet conversation echoing in the vaulted ceilings. The sight of beautiful art, intricate tiles, and the naked human form in various stages of relaxation and activity. It's a powerful, immersive experience, designed for rejuvenation and social connection. And it powerfully underscores the fact that Roman health practices were far more sophisticated and sensible than the popular myths often suggest. You begin to consider the context of Roman feasting, which is where the misconception truly took root. While the Romans certainly enjoyed elaborate banquets, and some individuals undoubtedly practiced excessive eating, the idea of designated vomit rooms as a common, institutionalized practice is largely a myth. Roman sources do mention instances of individuals purging, sometimes using emetics or inducing vomiting with a feather. But this was generally considered a private, often shameful act, not a public or socially accepted ritual facilitated by architectural features. It was more akin to someone discreetly excusing themselves to the bathroom than a formal, designated vomit time on the dinner party agenda. You wouldn't invite guests over and then announce, "Right, time for the vomitorium break." Everyone. That would just be awkward. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums in the context of their health and purification is that the myth relies on the absurd idea that a highly practical, hygiene-conscious society would invent a specific architectural feature for a self-defeating and unhygienic practice, completely ignoring their vast, impressive infrastructure for actual cleanliness and well-being. It's the truth that this persistent misconception trivializes the Romans' genuine achievements in public health and sanitation. You muse on how a society so adept at channeling water for drinking and waste disposal could be so misunderstood regarding their internal bodily processes. It's almost as if we've imposed our own modern anxieties and fascinations with excess onto their ancient lives, rather than looking at the evidence with clear eyes. And now, armed with this truth, you can rest easy, knowing the Romans were far cleaner than the myths often suggest. You picture a Roman dining room, or triclinium, with its 3 couches arranged around a low table. The atmosphere is one of lively conversation, philosophical discussion, and yes, plenty of food and wine. But the focus is on companionship, social interaction, and perhaps showing off one's wealth and status through the quality of the meal. Not on sheer volume consumption followed by engineered expulsion. The idea of more was certainly part of Roman luxury, but they had other ways of managing it, like prolonged dining sessions spread over many hours, or simply stopping. Revolutionary. I know. You close your eyes, letting the image of the bustling, cleansing Roman baths fade into the gentle quiet of your own room. You see the clear, pure waters flowing through aqueducts, the serene faces of Romans emerging from their therapeutic rituals, feeling truly refreshed. The whispers of the past are no longer about exaggerated tales of bodily excess, but about the quiet dignity of a people who valued health, cleanliness, and the sophisticated engineering that supported it. And in that quiet understanding, you feel a deep, comforting sense of peace, drifting off to sleep. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums isn't that Romans were uniquely disgusting or gluttonous, though some individuals certainly were, but that our modern imaginations often project sensationalism onto history, preferring a scandalous lie over a mundane, practical truth. It's the truth that a simple, elegant piece of engineering, designed to safely manage crowds, was twisted into a symbol of unchecked hedonism. It's a humbling reminder of how a catchy, shocking story can overshadow the quieter, yet more impressive realities of human ingenuity. We're drawn to the drama, aren't we? The idea of a room just for throwing up is far more entertaining than a perfectly efficient exit strategy. It's like preferring to believe your car runs on magic pixie dust rather than the boring mechanics of an internal combustion engine. The pixie dust story is just more fun. You feel the final cleansing mist of the Roman baths dissipate, leaving you wrapped in the quiet comfort of your bed. The elaborate engineering and societal norms of the classical world begin to soften, and a different landscape unfurls in your mind's eye. Tonight, we're going to leave behind the sun-drenched marble and the carefully constructed order of the Roman Empire, and drift towards the misty forests and windswept plains of ancient Celtic and Germanic lands. Here, you'll explore nature's sacred exchange, discovering a profound reverence for natural cycles and how offerings truly honored the earth itself. A stark contrast to the human-centric focus we've just left behind. You close your eyes, letting the image of the true vomitorium solidify in your mind, not a chamber of excess, but a wide, vaulted passage, humming with the ordered flow of thousands of citizens, emerging from the roar of the arena into the Roman twilight. It's a testament to practicality, not depravity. As the whispers of that ancient myth fade, replaced by the quiet hum of your own thoughts, you feel a gentle satisfaction. You've uncovered a little piece of hidden truth, a subtle correction to the grand tapestry of history, and in that quiet understanding, you find a gentle peace, ready to let the real story carry you into a peaceful slumber. You find yourself standing on the edge of a dense, ancient forest. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp earth, pine needles, and something wilder, untamed. Shafts of dappled sunlight filter through the canopy, painting shifting patterns on the mossy ground. There are no grand stone temples here, no towering amphitheaters. Instead, the sacred spaces are living. Breathing entities, a hallowed grove of ancient oaks, a stilled dark pool nestled deep within the woods, a windswept hilltop overlooking a valley, or a bubbling spring emerging from the rocks. You hear the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, and perhaps the faint whisper of the wind through the branches, carrying secrets from centuries past. This is a world where divinity is felt in the rustling leaves, the shifting seasons, and the very ground beneath your feet. It's a very different kind of architecture, built by nature itself, and probably much harder to get permits for. You stir, the image of those efficient Roman exits still lingering in your mind. The whispers of exaggerated feasts fade further, replaced by the more solid, satisfying reality of ingenious engineering. You're ready now to dive deeper into the surprising, practical reality behind that once misunderstood Roman invention, designed with a singular, vital purpose movement, not excess. Tonight, you're going to truly understand the sheer brilliance of Roman architecture and its capacity for managing vast throngs of people. The common historical fact is that many ancient Celtic and Germanic peoples did not build large, permanent temples in the classical sense, but instead held their most significant religious rituals in natural sacred spaces like groves, springs, and mountaintops. These natural sites were seen as inherently holy, places where the veil between the human world and the divine was thin. Offerings, when made, were often placed directly into these natural features, into bogs, lakes, rivers, or beneath sacred trees, signifying a return to the earth, a direct communication with the spirits of the land. It wasn't about constructing a building to contain the divine, but about recognizing the divine within the natural world itself. It was like they had a direct, always-on connection to the universe's Wi-Fi without needing a router. You find yourself standing at the base of a colossal Roman amphitheater. Perhaps the Colosseum again? Or maybe the amphitheater of Capua. Equally grand, though less famous. The sheer scale of it is breathtaking. You tilt your head back, gazing up at the multiple tiers of arches, rising majestically against the Roman sky. The air, thick with the dry dust of ages, carries the faint, ghostly echoes of cheers, gladiatorial clashes, and the murmuring anticipation of thousands. But your focus isn't on the spectacle that once occurred within its walls. Instead, you're drawn to the entrances, the dark, cavernous arches that punctuate the outer wall, inviting you in. These are not mere doorways, they are gateways to understanding how the Romans truly moved mountains, or rather moved masses of people. You approach a still, dark bog, its surface reflecting the gray sky. There's a profound stillness here, a sense of immense age. You notice faint ripples on the water, perhaps from a passing breeze, or something deeper stirring beneath. The ground around the bog is soft, yielding, covered in peat and ancient moss. This isn't a place of grand display, but of quiet reverence. It feels intimate, primal. You imagine ancient hands, perhaps just like yours, carefully placing an offering into the dark, receptive waters. You step through one of these imposing arches, and immediately, you notice a profound difference from what you might expect. Instead of narrow corridors or cramped stairwells, you find yourself in a wide, vaulted passage, expertly crafted from sturdy Roman concrete and brick. The passage is bathed in a soft, diffused light, filtering in from openings higher up or from the main arena itself. The air inside is cooler, a welcome respite from the outside sun. You walk forward, your footsteps echoing slightly on the ancient stone, and you realize that this isn't just a tunnel. It's a meticulously designed conduit. The offerings here aren't about showcasing wealth to a human audience or propitiating a distant, anthropomorphic deity. They are often practical, almost utilitarian, yet deeply symbolic. You might see a finely crafted sword, its hilt adorned with intricate patterns, plunged into the peat, or perhaps a bronze torque, gleaming dully beneath the murky surface. Even human bodies known as bog bodies have been found, preserved eerily by the anaerobic conditions, hinting at complex, often debated, sacrificial rites. These aren't remnants of a feast, but deliberate acts of deposition, a giving back to the earth. It's like returning borrowed library books. But the books are priceless artifacts and the library is the entire planet. This is the true heart of the Vomitorium system. The common historical fact is that Roman amphitheaters and theaters were masterfully designed with numerous vomitoria and internal circulation systems, including concentric corridors and radial staircases to allow tens of thousands of spectators to enter and exit within minutes. Think about the modern challenge of evacuating a large stadium after a football game or a concert. It often takes a considerable amount of time, involves bottlenecks, and can even become chaotic. The Romans, without the aid of modern technology, faced this exact problem on an even grander scale. Considering the sheer number of unorganized citizens they needed to usher in and out for their public spectacles, their solution was not just effective, it was revolutionary. It was like they invented the concept of rapid transit for people before anyone even had a bus. An obscure detail about these natural sacred sites is that the specific type of offerings made often corresponded directly to the natural resource or deity associated with that particular place, creating a localized, reciprocal relationship between humans and their environment. For instance, metal objects might be offered to a bog or lake associated with underground wealth or water deities, while agricultural tools or grain might be buried in fields to ensure fertility. Weapons might be placed in sacred rivers after battles, not just as spoils, but as a symbolic offering to the victory gods, or to appease the spirits of the fallen. It was a precise, targeted gift-giving, ensuring balance and favor for specific aspects of life that depended on nature's bounty. They weren't just throwing stuff in, they were having a very specific conversation with the land itself. Probably had a mental checklist. Okay, new sword. Water spirit check? Fertility god nope? That's the field. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a Roman mystery. One that probably popped into your head the moment you saw the title. You're already picturing it, aren't you? The grand Roman feast, overflowing with exotic dishes, reclining figures draped in togas, and then a little break in a designated room, just to make more room for all that gluttony. A place where, legend has it, the ancient Romans would go to, well, vomit up their previous meal so they could keep on feasting. You can almost smell the fermented fish sauce and hear the polite retching. It's a scene so vivid, so perfectly decadent. It just has to be true. Write a truly terrible truth. Perhaps if you were a guest at one of those parties, you probably wouldn't survive the appetizer round, let alone the main course. You're already feeling a little queasy, aren't you? You feel the weight of this understanding. It wasn't a generalized act of appeasement, it was a deeply interconnected system of reciprocity. The people gave to the earth, to the water, to the sky. And in return, they hoped for healthy crops, plentiful game, clear springs, and success in battle. It was a partnership, a sacred exchange where the lines between the human and natural worlds were blurred. You imagine them speaking to the trees, to the river, as if to an old, wise friend, a bit like talking to your plants, but with higher stakes. You imagine yourself as a Roman citizen, perhaps a baker or a soldier, eager to see the morning games. You approach the entrance, and instead of a single, long queue, you find a series of clearly marked arches, each leading to a specific section of the seating. You pass through your designated vomitorium, moving swiftly up a wide, gently sloping ramp or a broad staircase. The passage opens directly into a specific seating block, high up in the stands. The efficiency is astounding. There's no jostling, no confusion. It's a beautifully choreographed human flow, designed to funnel bodies with remarkable speed and order. You'd almost think they had a spreadsheet tracking human throughput. But then you remember spreadsheets hadn't been invented yet. They just had really smart architects. Historians still debate the exact theological and social motivations behind human sacrifice in these cultures, particularly the well-preserved bog bodies. Was it an act of extreme appeasement during times of crisis, a form of capital punishment, or a sacred ritual to ensure fertility and prosperity? The lack of definitive written records and the varying interpretations of archaeological evidence leave the precise context and meaning of these profound offerings as a deeply fascinating and ongoing point of academic discussion. You wonder if they had ancient historians debating it back then too, perhaps scratching their heads over a particularly well-preserved Bronze Age axe. You notice the materials. The floors are hard-wearing stone, smooth from centuries of foot traffic. The walls are sturdy, often faced with durable opus testaceum, brick-faced concrete, or opus reticulatum, net-like concrete, designed to withstand the constant wear and tear of thousands of bodies rubbing against them. The vaulted ceilings, often barrel vaults, are not just aesthetically pleasing, but structurally vital, distributing the immense weight of the upper tiers in the crowds above. These passages weren't built for fleeting moments. They were built to last, to function flawlessly, day after day, year after year, for centuries. It's like they built their exit ramps out of the same stuff they used to build mountains. Probably why they're still standing. You shift your attention to a sacred spring bubbling up from beneath a cluster of ancient trees. The water is crystal clear, cold to the touch. Around its edges, you might see small, humble offerings: a coin, a piece of broken pottery, a woven band, or even a lock of hair. These are personal offerings, expressions of gratitude, prayers for healing, or hopes for the future. They are not grand displays, but intimate acts of devotion, a direct connection to the life-giving force of the water. It's a quiet testament to a belief system where the divine was not distant, but intimately present in every drop of water, every leaf, every breath of wind. An obscure detail about these vomitoria and their related passages is the incorporation of subtle visual cues and directional aids within the architecture itself. While not always explicitly marked with modern signs, the Romans often used specific arch shapes, variations in lighting, or the strategic placement of structural elements to intuitively guide people. For instance, a slightly wider arch might indicate a main thoroughfare, or a change in the ceiling height could signal an approaching exit point. These weren't overt follow this arrow signs, but rather an implicit architectural language that helped direct the flow of human traffic without conscious thought. It was like ancient Roman subliminal messaging, but for walking in a straight line, you will exit this way. You will not cause a bottleneck. And apparently, it worked. The reverence for cycles, the cycle of the seasons, of growth and decay, of life and death, was paramount. Solstices and equinoxes were not just astronomical events, but profoundly sacred times for communal gatherings and offerings. You can almost feel the chill of a winter solstice morning, the air crisp and still, as people gather at a sacred stone circle, waiting for the first rays of the returning sun. Offerings made at these times would be designed to ensure the continuation of these vital cycles, to encourage the sun's return, the earth's fertility, and the well-being of the community. It's all about going with the flow, literally and figuratively. You feel a sense of admiration for this clever, almost psychological aspect of their design. They understood not just the physics of building, but the psychology of human movement in large crowds. They anticipated the natural tendencies of people to follow paths of least resistance. And they built those paths directly into the fabric of their colossal structures. It's a level of user experience design that most modern architects would envy. And they did it all without CAD software or focus groups, just pure, unadulterated Roman genius. Contrast this with the Roman vomitorium myth. The Roman myth suggests an excess, a breaking of natural boundaries. Here, among the Celts and Germanics, the practices are about honoring boundaries, acknowledging natural limits, and working within the rhythm of the earth. Their offerings, even the most profound, are an acknowledgement of dependence, a plea for harmony, a deep respect for the power of the natural world. There's no sense of needing to expel an excess of consumption because consumption itself was part of a larger, balanced system of giving and receiving. It's a sustainable relationship with the environment, centuries before anyone coined the term. Historians still debate the precise calculations or empirical methods the Romans used to determine the optimal number, width, and placement of vomitoria for different amphitheater sizes. While we have the end results, the underlying mathematical or observational data that informed these complex crowd management designs is largely lost to time. Did they conduct crowd simulations with slaves? Did they just use very detailed observational notes from smaller venues? The question of their specific design methodology for such large-scale human traffic management remains a fascinating point of academic discussion. You wonder if they had tiny little Roman Lego sets they used for planning. Probably not. The sensory details here are raw, visceral. The damp chill of the bog, the earthy scent of the forest floor, the crisp, clean taste of spring water, the rough bark of an ancient oak against your palm. You hear the deep silence of the woods, punctuated by the rustle of unseen creatures. You see the subtle interplay of light and shadow, the vibrant greens of moss and fern, the muted browns of fallen leaves. It's a world where every sense is heightened, drawing you into a profound connection with the living planet. It's truly immersive, without needing any virtual reality headsets. The experience of moving through these passages would have been a sensory one, even if it wasn't about purging. You hear the rhythmic shuffle of thousands of feet, the low murmur of anticipation or post-event chatter. The air might carry the faint scent of human perspiration, dust, and the distant aroma of snacks being sold. As you emerge from the coolness of the passage into the bright light of the arena, or out into the bustling street, you feel a sudden expansion, a release from the contained space. It's a feeling of efficient transition, a rapid entry and exit that speaks volumes about the Roman focus on practicality and order. It was less like a leisurely stroll and more like a human waterslide, but dry, and without the splashing. So, less fun, but equally effective. You observe a community gathering for a harvest festival. The air is filled with the scent of wood smoke and roasting meat, but also the sweet fragrance of ripe grain and berries. Offerings of the first fruits of the harvest are carefully placed at the base of a sacred tree, or offered to a river. It's a celebration, but also a solemn act of gratitude and renewal. The food eaten is part of this cycle, a gift from the earth, consumed with respect. There's no hint of overindulgence requiring forced expulsion. Instead, there's a sense of communal sharing and appreciative consumption. They eat what they need, and they honor where it came from. A pretty good lesson for us, actually. You then consider how this architectural innovation contrasts sharply with the popular misconception. The idea of a vomitorium as a purging room is a testament to our tendency to romanticize or sensationalize the past, often to fit a narrative of excessive Roman decadence. We love the image of Romans overindulging to the point of needing architectural assistance to continue their feasting. It makes for a great story, a vivid picture of unbridled luxury and moral decay. But the reality is far less scandalous and far more impressive from an engineering standpoint. The Romans certainly had their excesses, but they also had an unparalleled talent for building and organizing. It's like believing the intricate workings of a Swiss watch are powered by a tiny, disgruntled gnome, rather than precision gears. The gnome story is just more compelling, isn't it? The people move with a quiet dignity, their movements attuned to the natural landscape. They understand that their very survival depends on the health and generosity of the land around them. Their religious practices reflect this deep understanding, this intimate relationship. The offerings aren't about purging, but about nourishing the sacred, about maintaining a delicate balance. It's a far cry from the sensationalized, ill-conceived notion of the Roman vomitorium. Here, you witness a profound interconnectedness, a spiritual ecosystem in action. You think back to the ancient Roman banquets we discussed briefly earlier. While they were long and involved, they were also social affairs. Romans valued conversation, poetry recitations, and entertainment during their meals. The idea of constantly running off to purge would have interrupted the flow of conversation, broken the social dynamic, and frankly, been incredibly rude. Imagine hosting a dinner party and your guests keep disappearing for a quick vomitorium break. You'd probably stop inviting them. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums, in contrast to these Celtic and Germanic practices, is that the myth not only misrepresents Roman architecture, but also distracts from the rich, diverse, and often deeply ecological spiritualities of other ancient cultures, which saw offerings as a way to maintain cosmic and natural harmony, not to facilitate gluttony. It's the truth that focusing on a sensationalized falsehood for one culture can prevent us from truly appreciating the nuanced wisdom and sophisticated understanding of others. You muse on how much we miss when we cling to the easy, scandalous story, rather than seeking out the real, often more beautiful complexities of human history. And now, as you drift further into sleep, you carry with you the quiet reverence for the earth, a timeless wisdom that still echoes from the ancient forest. You realize that the true vomitorium speaks to a different kind of Roman character, their pragmatism. They were not just artists or conquerors, they were builders, engineers, and city planners who understood the challenges of supporting a vast and active population. Their structures, from aqueducts to bathhouses to their massive public entertainment venues, were designed with a keen eye on functionality and efficiency. The vomitorium is a shining example of this pragmatic genius, allowing thousands of people to seamlessly enter and exit structures that still stand as testaments to their engineering prowess today. They were basically the original crowd surfing experts, but for entire stadiums. You close your eyes, letting the image of the misty, sacred groves and windswept hills fade into the gentle quiet of your own room. You see ancient hands placing offerings into dark waters, the vibrant green of moss beneath ancient oaks, and the quiet dignity of a people in profound harmony with their world. The whispers of the past are no longer about distorted architectural terms, but about the timeless wisdom of connecting deeply with nature, a wisdom that still feels incredibly relevant today. And in that quiet understanding, you feel a deep, comforting sense of peace, drifting off to sleep. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums isn't about their function, but about the enduring power of a catchy, yet inaccurate narrative to overshadow practical brilliance. It's the truth that for centuries, a simple misinterpretation of a Latin word led generations to believe in a spectacle of Roman excess that never truly existed in an institutionalized form. It's a humbling reminder that sometimes the most mundane facts are hidden beneath the most sensational fictions. You consider how many other areas of history might be similarly obscured by popular, yet false narratives. The very ground beneath your feet, metaphorically speaking, could be hiding dozens of similar secrets. You feel the misty forests and the quiet dignity of ancient European practices gently recede, replaced by a softer, more intricate tapestry of history. As you shift subtly, finding that perfect spot on your pillow, your mind drifts eastward, across vast continents, to the ancient civilizations of Asia. Here, the relationship between humanity and the divine, between the living and the departed, often revolved around a concept of harmony and ancestral echoes. Tonight, you'll observe the varied, often symbolic, practices across ancient Asia, where the goal was less about grand appeasement and more about seeking balance and honoring lineage. You close your eyes. The quiet hum of your room a gentle counterpoint to the imagined roar of ancient crowds? You see not the fanciful image of a purging room, but the wide, echoing passages of a Roman amphitheater, filled with the steady, purposeful movement of thousands of people. It's a vision of order, of engineering marvel, and of a practical genius that truly shaped the ancient world. You've peeled back another layer of misconception, and in that quiet understanding, you find a deep, satisfying peace. Ready for sleep? You find yourself standing not amidst the clash of gladiators or the solemn quiet of a bog, but in a serene, perhaps dimly lit, family shrine in ancient China, or a tranquil temple courtyard in Japan, or even a bustling marketplace in ancient India. The air is different here, perhaps the faint scent of incense, the murmur of chanting, or the gentle clang of a distant bell. You see intricate carvings, delicate brushstrokes, and perhaps the flicker of candlelight on polished wood. This is a world where reverence is expressed not just through grand gestures, but through daily rituals, meticulous attention to detail, and a deep, enduring respect for the past. It's a bit like an ancient, spiritual version of keeping your house tidy. Everything has its place, and every action has meaning. You feel the slight pressure of your surroundings, the comfortable weight of your blanket, and the gentle hum of the fan. But in your mind's eye, you're no longer in a quiet room. You're standing at the edge of a vast, open space, surrounded by the colossal, towering walls of a Roman amphitheater. The sheer scale of it is almost unfathomable. This isn't just a building, it's an entire city within a city, designed to hold tens of thousands of fervent spectators. You glance up at the dizzying heights of the seating tiers, imagining the roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, the collective gasps and cheers echoing through the ancient air. And you wonder, how in the world did they get everyone in and out without total pandemonium tonight? You're going to witness the ingenious design that allowed for colossal crowds, controlled flow. The common historical fact is that across many ancient Asian cultures, particularly in China and Japan, ancestral veneration played a central and foundational role in religious and social life, with offerings primarily serving to honor the deceased, maintain familial harmony, and ensure the well-being of the living descendants. These weren't typically about warding off malevolent deities through animal sacrifice in the Roman or even early Mesopotamian sense. Instead, they were about expressing filial piety, reinforcing community bonds, and ensuring a peaceful relationship with the spirits of one's forebears. It was less about making gods happy and more about keeping Grandpa's spirit chill, which, let's be honest, is a pretty important goal. You see yourself as one of the masses, a single face in a sea of eager anticipation. The air is electric with excitement. You can hear the distant rumble of the crowd already inside, a low, guttural murmur that promises thrilling spectacle. You smell dust, sun-warmed stone, and perhaps the faint scent of sweat and cheap wine. The sun is high, casting stark shadows, and you begin your approach to one of the many arched entrances, one of those famous vomitoria. Remember, you're not for purging, but for progress. You observe a family gathered around a small altar, bowls of freshly cooked rice, cups of tea or wine, and perhaps plates of fruit are meticulously arranged. Small sticks of incense burn, their thin tendrils of smoke curling upwards, carrying prayers and respect to the unseen realm. You see the youngest child, guided by an elder, bowing respectfully before the altar, then placing a fresh offering. This isn't a fearful act. It's one of profound love, duty, and continuity. It's a daily rhythm, a quiet affirmation of belonging. This is where the true brilliance of Roman engineering shines. The common historical fact is that these massive Roman entertainment venues, like the Colosseum, could be emptied of their tens of thousands of spectators in mere minutes. A feat of crowd control that rivals many modern stadiums. Imagine trying to get 50,000 people out of an event in under 10 minutes without panic, bottlenecks, or any digital ticketing systems. The Romans did it, consistently. They understood human movement on a scale that few civilizations before or since have truly mastered. It's like they invented the fast pass for getting out of a really, really popular show. Except you didn't have to pay extra for it. Usually, the offerings themselves are often symbolic, reflective of life's simple sustenance: food, drink, and light. Sometimes, paper effigies of goods, money, clothing, even houses or servants are burned, believed to transfer these items to the spirit world for the comfort of the ancestors. This practice highlights a belief not in a greedy, demanding afterlife, but in a continuation of needs and a desire for the comfort of those who came before. It's like sending care packages to the great beyond, except you don't have to worry about postage or melted chocolate. You approach your designated entrance, clutching a small clay tessera, a sort of ancient Roman ticket. This tessera isn't just a randomly assigned seat. It's meticulously coded. It tells you which archway to enter, which staircase to ascend, and which seating section you belong to. It's a remarkable system of internal organization, assigning each spectator a specific route from the moment they arrive. You don't just wander in, you are guided, almost imperceptibly, by the architecture itself. It's the original follow-the-colored line system, only carved in stone. An obscure detail about these ancient Asian practices is the concept of spirit money, or joss paper, and its intricate designs, which went beyond simple offerings to reflect a highly complex spiritual economy and bureaucracy. These paper representations of currency were often designed to mimic actual ancient coinage, complete with imperial seals or specific denominations. The belief was that the burning of this spirit money facilitated transactions in the underworld, allowing ancestors to live comfortably, pay off spiritual debts, or even bribe minor deities or officials for favorable treatment for their living descendants. It was a sophisticated system of spiritual commerce, complete with its own unique banking methods. Honestly, it sounds more complicated than my actual taxes. As you pass through your vomitorium, you find yourself in a wide, vaulted passage. This passage isn't just a straight shot to your seat. Instead, it forms part of a series of concentric corridors known as ambulacra, which encircle the entire structure. You step onto a broad radial staircase that curves gently upwards, leading you from the outer ambulacrum to an inner one, and then eventually to your specific seating tier. The light changes as you ascend, moving from the dim coolness of the outer arches to the brighter, open air of the arena. You can hear the sounds of the crowd growing louder, more distinct as you get closer to your destination. You ponder this intricate spiritual economy. It suggests a belief system where the afterlife wasn't just a static paradise or purgatory, but an active, dynamic realm with its own social structures and financial needs. The living had a direct role in supporting their ancestors' well-being in this spiritual bureaucracy. And in turn, the ancestors could intercede on behalf of the living. It was a symbiotic relationship, a continuous exchange of spiritual and material support. It's almost like a family business, but with much, much longer-term investments. You notice how wide these passages are. They're designed not just for single-file movement, but for multiple streams of people moving comfortably side by side. The staircases are broad and shallow, making the ascent easy, even with thousands of others. There's no sharp turns or sudden bottlenecks. Every transition is smooth, every angle calculated to maintain an uninterrupted flow. It's like a beautifully designed river system, channeling countless tiny droplets, people into larger currents, and then out into a vast, open sea, without any damming or unexpected rapids, thankfully. You'd probably trip and fall and then become part of the ancient Roman equivalent of a human speed bump. Historians still debate the precise socio-economic implications and class distinctions reflected in the quantity and quality of ancestral offerings across various ancient Asian societies. While elite families could afford more lavish and numerous offerings, the extent to which commoners participated in similar, albeit simpler, rituals, and the degree to which these practices reinforced or challenged existing social hierarchies remains an interesting academic question. Were humble offerings of rice and incense as spiritually efficacious as mountains of paper gold? And how did these practices evolve with changing economic fortunes? You wonder if there were ancient spiritual influencers showing off their elaborate offerings on papyrus scrolls? An obscure detail about the crowd management within these structures is the strategic use of separate entrance and exit paths for different social classes or groups. While everyone used a vomitorium to enter and exit, the elite, senators, knights, and other dignitaries often had dedicated, wider, and more direct passages to their lower, privileged seating areas. These might even be less steep or have more ornate finishes. This separation wasn't just about comfort. It was about maintaining social order and hierarchy, preventing the mixing of classes in potentially chaotic situations. It was the ancient world's version of VIP access, but instead of bottle service, you just got to avoid bumping into a commoner. You then find yourself in a quieter, more meditative setting, perhaps a Buddhist temple in ancient India or Southeast Asia. The air is thick with the scent of sandalwood and jasmine. You hear the soft, rhythmic chanting of monks, a deep, resonant sound that vibrates through your chest. Here, the focus shifts from ancestral veneration to the pursuit of inner peace, enlightenment, and the alleviation of suffering. Offerings are often simpler flowers, water, fruit, or light, symbolizing purity, impermanence, and the interconnectedness of all life. They're about cultivating good karma and showing respect for the path to awakening. It's less about a grand display and more about quiet, personal devotion, like tidying your mind instead of your house. You consider the social implications of this. The Romans were meticulous about their social stratification, and their architecture reflected it. Even in the shared experience of the games, the hierarchy was maintained, ensuring that the powerful and the influential could move with relative ease and dignity away from the jostling masses. It's a reminder that even when building for public use, ancient societies rarely truly built for everyone equally. It's a bit like how some modern stadiums have special entrances that let you bypass the long lines. So, some things never change. Even without the fancy velvet ropes, historians still debate the specific methods by which Roman ushers or designatores who directed spectators to their seats managed the minute-by-minute flow within these complex structures. While the architecture provided the framework, the human element of directing and guiding thousands of individuals in real time would have been crucial. Were there signals, shouts, or even specific formations used by these staff members to maintain order during the peak entry and exit? The precise training and operational logistics of these ancient crowd managers remain an intriguing area of academic inquiry, as their efficiency was truly remarkable. You wonder if they had a secret handshake or a whistle system. Probably a whistle system, knowing the Romans. You finally reach your section. Guided by the numbers etched into the stone above the arches, you find your seat, a hard stone bench, and settle in, taking in the vast expanse of the arena floor below, and the dizzying height of the seating tiers above. The air is thick with anticipation now, a palpable energy that vibrates through the very stone of the amphitheater. The constant influx of people through the various vomitoria continues, a steady, orderly stream, until eventually the entire colossal structure is filled to capacity. The noise is immense, a unified roar of excitement, and you realize that this is not just about entertainment, it's about control, about the incredible human achievement of managing such a vast assembly. You observe people bowing deeply before statues of the Buddha, their faces serene. They don't offer animals, they offer themselves, their devotion, their understanding, their intention to live a life free from suffering. The emphasis is on compassion, mindfulness, and the interconnectedness of all sentient beings. The thought of a vomitorium here, a place of gross physical indulgence and expulsion, feels utterly alien to the serene pursuit of spiritual liberation. It's like trying to listen to calming meditation music while someone is loudly burping the alphabet. It just doesn't fit the vibe. When the games conclude, or the chariot races end in a cloud of dust and glory, the process reverses with equal efficiency. You stand up with the rest of your section, and instead of pushing and shoving, you find yourself part of a well-oiled machine. You move down the same broad staircases and through the same wide vomitoria that brought you in. The outward flow is as smooth and rapid as the inward flow. The multiple exits around the perimeter of the amphitheater, each leading to a different street or public space, disperse the crowd quickly and effectively. You're not trapped, you're being disgorged, smoothly and safely, back into the bustling life of the city. The sensory details here are soft, subtle, the gentle coolness of polished stone beneath your bare feet, the calming scent of incense, the rhythmic drone of chanting, the soft glow of butter lamps illuminating sacred texts. You see intricate mandalas, vibrant frescoes depicting tales of enlightenment, and the peaceful expressions on the faces of meditators. It's a world designed to calm the senses, to turn the gaze inward, and to foster a sense of universal compassion, and it's a truly peaceful place to be. The experience is almost serene in its efficiency. There's no panic, no crushing, just a steady, purposeful movement. It's a testament to the fact that the Romans were not just about brute force. They were masters of logistics and subtle, intelligent design. They built structures that anticipated human behavior, guiding it rather than fighting against it. They understood that even the wildest crowds could be tamed by smart architecture. If only they could have applied that genius to, say, their political infighting. That might have made things a bit less bloody. You then shift to a bustling, vibrant scene in ancient Japan. Perhaps a Shinto shrine nestled amidst towering cedar trees. The air is crisp, clean, filled with the murmur of prayers and the distinct sound of a shimenawa, a sacred rope adorned with paper streamers rustling in the breeze. Here, the focus is on kami, the spirits that inhabit all things, trees, rocks, rivers, mountains, and even abstract concepts like fertility or growth. Offerings are typically simple and pure rice wine steak, salt, water, or branches from sacred trees. They are acts of respect, of acknowledging the divine presence in the natural world, and of seeking blessings for purity and harmony. The sensory details of this exit are just as vivid as the entry. You feel the cool stone beneath your feet, the slight chill in the air as the sun begins to set. You hear the receding murmurs of the crowd, slowly diminishing as people disperse into the city. You might catch the scent of dust settling or the faint, sweet smell of the wildflowers growing in cracks in the ancient stones. The echoes in the vomitoria themselves are distinctive, amplifying the shuffling of feet and the low chatter, creating a unique acoustic environment that helps to define the experience. The Shinto tradition emphasizes purity and cleansing rituals harai. You might see people rinsing their hands and mouths at a chozuya, a purification fountain before approaching the main shrine. This physical cleansing is symbolic of spiritual purification, clearing away any impurities before connecting with the kami. This deep-seated emphasis on cleanliness and purity stands in stark contrast to the myth of a Roman vomitorium being used for gross indulgence. It would be like cleaning your entire house from top to bottom, then inviting everyone to track mud through it immediately afterward. It just doesn't make logical sense in a culture so focused on ritual purity. You realize that the true vomitorium wasn't just a tunnel. It was an integral part of a complex, three-dimensional circulation system. It worked in conjunction with the ambulacra, the radial staircases, and the careful partitioning of seating sections to create a highly effective network for mass human movement. This system was vital not only for convenience but for safety, preventing stampedes and ensuring order in situations where chaos could easily reign. It's like a sophisticated ancient Roman airport, where every gate, every corridor, every moving walkway, if they had those, was designed to get you to your plane on time. Only, instead of a plane, it was a gladiatorial fight to the death. Slightly different stakes. The overall ethos across these diverse Asian cultures leans heavily towards balance, harmony, and respectful interaction with both the visible and invisible worlds. Whether it's honoring ancestors, seeking enlightenment, or connecting with nature spirits. The practices are generally about subtle offerings, quiet reverence, and the cultivation of inner or communal well-being. The excesses implied by the vomitorium myth simply don't align with these core tenets. It's a fundamental philosophical disconnect. It's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole, but the peg is gluttony and the hole is spiritual enlightenment. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums is not found in a scandalous detail about Roman excess, but in the irony that one of their greatest feats of practical engineering was misinterpreted for centuries as a symbol of their most extreme indulgence. It's the truth that our fascination with the sensational can blind us to the quiet brilliance of effective design. We often prefer the juicy, scandalous story, even if it's entirely fabricated, over the impressive reality of intelligent planning. It's a humbling lesson about how quickly a practical solution can be distorted by popular imagination, turning a marvel of crowd management into a bizarre symbol of ancient gluttony. You ponder how many other impressive feats of history are similarly hidden beneath layers of popular, yet inaccurate, legends. It makes you want to go back and check all those quirky historical facts you picked up in school. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums, in contrast to these diverse Asian practices, is that the myth not only simplifies Roman history, but it also creates a false universal standard of ancient excess, blinding us to the vastly different, often more nuanced and deeply spiritual motivations behind ritual and offering in cultures that prioritized balance, respect for ancestors, and inner harmony over ostentatious consumption. It's the truth that clinging to such a dramatic, yet inaccurate narrative prevents a richer, more accurate understanding of the global tapestry of ancient human experience. You muse on how much broader and more fascinating history becomes when you let go of the easy, sensationalist stories and allow the quiet, profound truths to emerge. And now, as you drift further into sleep, you carry with you the gentle wisdom of harmony and ancestral echoes, a comforting presence that spans millennia. You close your eyes, The last image in your mind, one of ordered departure, thousands of Roman citizens flowing smoothly out of a magnificent amphitheater, guided by the unseen hand of brilliant architecture into the calm of the setting sun. The sounds of the ancient crowd fade into the soft, comforting hum of your own room, and you feel the quiet satisfaction of having uncovered another layer of historical truth. And in that quiet understanding, you find a deep, restful peace, ready for a truly good night's sleep. You close your eyes, letting the serene images of ancient Asian shrines and tranquil temples fade into the gentle quiet of your own room. You see the soft glow of incense, the careful arrangement of offerings, and the peaceful faces of those seeking balance and connection. The whispers of the past are no longer about distorted architectural terms, but about the timeless wisdom of respect, harmony, and the enduring bonds of family and spirit. And in that quiet understanding, you feel a deep, comforting sense of peace. Drifting off to sleep, you shift slightly. The memory of those grand, efficient exits from the gladiatorial arena is still clear in your mind. The hum of your surroundings feels like a gentle current, pulling you deeper into the quiet depths of Roman ingenuity. Tonight, you're going to step away from the roaring crowds of the Colosseum and into a slightly more refined, yet equally fascinating, world the echoes in the theaters. You're about to discover how Roman performances, whether a comedic play or a serious tragedy, unfolded in spaces where every seat and every exit was carefully planned for audience ease. Reflecting the same architectural brilliance you've already encountered, you feel the gentle echoes of ancestral reverence and the harmonious balance of ancient Asian traditions slowly soften, blending into the quiet hum of your own room. The images of incense, smoke, and peaceful temples begin to fade, replaced by a sense of historical shift, a gradual yet profound reevaluation of humanity's relationship with the divine and with life itself. Tonight, we're going to observe the fading flames, perceiving the slow, deliberate transformation of these ancient ritualistic practices as powerful new philosophies and moralities emerged across various civilizations. Gently dimming the prominence of large-scale animal sacrifice, you find yourself standing on a gentle slope, looking down at a beautiful Roman theater. It's smaller, perhaps, than the massive amphitheaters, but no less impressive in its design. The tiered seating, known as the cavei, rises in a graceful semicircle, embracing the stage. You can almost feel the smooth, worn stone beneath your fingertips, warmed by centuries of sunlight. The air here feels different, softer, perhaps carrying the faint scent of olive oil lamps from long-forgotten evening performances, or the subtle perfume of ancient audiences. The stage, or scaena, stands before you, adorned with intricate architectural backdrops, columns, and statues. It's a place where stories unfolded, where emotions were stirred, and where, just like in the grander arenas, people needed to move efficiently and safely. You find yourself standing at a crossroads of time, observing currents of thought that began to shift the very foundations of ancient belief systems. The air is no longer thick with the scent of sacrifice, but with the subtle, intellectual fragrance of new ideas. Ideas of compassion, inner purity, and universal interconnectedness. You see scholars debating in sunlit courtyards, ascetics meditating in quiet groves, and prophets speaking to eager crowds. This isn't a sudden revolution, but a slow, evolving understanding, like the gradual fading of twilight into night. Imperceptible moment by moment, yet undeniable when you look back. It's like watching a really long philosophical sunrise, but in reverse, and a lot less painful than watching paint dry. You observe the layout, and it's clear the same principles of crowd management are at play. The common historical fact is that Roman theaters, though often built into hillsides rather than freestanding like many amphitheaters, still utilized highly organized systems of entrances, stairways, and concentric passages to ensure rapid and orderly entry and exit for all spectators. While they might not have boasted the sheer number of vomitoria as a structure like the Colosseum, their design was equally thoughtful, adapted to the specific needs and scale of theatrical performances. It was like they applied their master plan for human flow to every kind of public gathering, big or small. They were basically the original human flow optimization experts. Probably had little flow charts on papyrus, The common historical fact is that the rise and spread of major philosophical and religious movements, such as Buddhism, Stoicism, and early Christianity, significantly contributed to the decline of widespread literal animal sacrifice by emphasizing inner spiritual purity, ethical conduct, and symbolic or singular acts of devotion over repeated blood offerings. These emerging belief systems often presented alternative paths to spiritual fulfillment, focusing on personal transformation, moral virtue, and compassion for all living beings, gradually shifting the focus from external appeasement to internal cultivation. It was a massive philosophical pivot, from what can I give the gods to what can I become. You imagine a warm Roman evening, the twilight painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. You're holding a small tessera for the evening's play, perhaps a comedy by Plautus. You join the steady stream of citizens heading towards the theater. Instead of massive multi-level archways leading into a freestanding structure, you might enter through a broad, arched passage that cuts directly into the hillside supporting the seating. Or perhaps you walk along a wide, paved walkway that encircles the lower tiers. The path is clear, intuitive, guiding you with subtle inclines and gentle curves towards your assigned section. You can hear the low murmur of anticipation, the rustle of togas, and the soft shuffle of sandals on stone. You first drift to ancient India, where the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, began to spread. You hear his gentle voice, advocating for ahimsa, non-harm or non-violence, towards all living creatures. The bustling, bloody Vedic altars, once central to spiritual life, slowly begin to give way to quiet meditation halls and monasteries. The focus shifts from elaborate fire sacrifices, yajnas involving animals, to offerings of flowers, incense, and water, symbolizing devotion and purity. The idea isn't to appease angry deities through sacrifice, but to cultivate compassion and understand the nature of suffering to achieve enlightenment. You notice the calm faces of his followers, a stark contrast to the heightened tension often seen around older sacrificial rituals. It's a shift from external performance to internal peace, like trading a rock concert for a really good nap. As you enter, you find yourself within an ambulacrum, a curving corridor that runs beneath the seating tiers. From this corridor, numerous radial staircases, scalaria, lead upwards, dividing the seating into distinct wedges, or cunei. Each staircase is wide enough for several people to ascend comfortably side by side, preventing bottlenecks. The light changes as you move, from the dimness of the arched entrance to the brighter, open-air seating area. The sound of the crowd becomes clearer, the distant chatter and laughter of those already seated growing louder. It's a beautifully orchestrated dance of human movement, designed to get you to your seat without missing a beat, or a punchline. Because what's worse than missing the start of a play missing the opening joke? Obviously, you feel the serene tranquility that permeates these new spaces. The emphasis is on mindfulness, on understanding the interconnectedness of life, and on reducing suffering. The act of offering becomes less about a material exchange and more about an act of generosity and detachment, contributing to one's own spiritual development and the welfare of all beings. The energy here is quiet, contemplative, a profound internal shift that radiates outward. You find your section, indicated by the numbers etched above the entrance to the seating wedge, and locate your seat on the cool, hard stone bench. The view of the stage is perfect. You feel a sense of calm efficiency, a quiet appreciation for the thought that went into making this experience so seamless. There's no frantic searching, no desperate squeezing past others, just a smooth, direct path. An obscure detail about this decline is that specific imperial decrees and the patronage of rulers profoundly influence the pace and adoption of these new ethical stances, sometimes leading to the outright prohibition of animal sacrifice within large empires. For instance, Emperor Ashoka in ancient India, a devout Buddhist, issued edicts in the 3rd century BCE that restricted animal slaughter and encouraged vegetarianism throughout his vast Mauryan empire. His policies were not just religious suggestions but state-enforced mandates, dramatically altering the landscape of sacrificial practices and promoting a new era of non-violence. It was like a giant empire-wide no pets allowed sign, but for religious ceremonies, an obscure detail related to the acoustics and egress in Roman theaters is that the materials used for the internal passages and seating were sometimes selected not just for durability, but also for their subtle acoustic properties, which could enhance the clarity of spoken word on stage while simultaneously helping to dampen ambient crowd noise in the walkways, facilitating clearer communication for ushers during entry and exit. Imagine how a slight difference in the roughness or density of the stone could help absorb the shuffling sounds of feet, allowing an usher's voice to carry further, guiding people to their seats. It's a remarkable fusion of form function and almost secret acoustic engineering, all serving the dual purpose of entertainment and crowd control. They were basically building ancient noise-canceling headphones into their architecture. Talk about being ahead of their time. You ponder the power of such imperial shifts. It wasn't just philosophy, it was policy. The combination of spiritual conviction and political will created a tidal wave of change, demonstrating how deeply intertwined belief and governance could be in shaping societal norms. Imagine the sheer logistical challenge of enforcing such a change across an entire empire. It speaks volumes about the conviction behind these new doctrines. You lean back, absorbing this subtle detail? It's another layer of Roman genius, a demonstration of how they considered every aspect of the public experience, from the flow of bodies to the clarity of sound. They weren't just building structures, they were crafting environments. And these environments, even their exit ramps, contributed to the overall sensory experience, ensuring that your journey to and from your seat was as smooth as possible. You realize they might have put more thought into your exit than some modern event organizers put into the entire event. Historians still debate the extent to which these philosophical and imperial shifts completely eradicated traditional animal sacrifices versus merely pushing them underground or transforming them into more symbolic acts. While official decrees might outlaw public practices, did private household rituals involving smaller sacrifices entirely cease? Or did they simply become less visible? The precise timeline and regional variations of this fading remain a fascinating area of academic inquiry, as cultural inertia and deeply ingrained customs often resist immediate top-down change. You wonder if there were ancient black markets for prohibited sacrificial animals. Probably. Humanity finds a way. Historians still debate the extent to which Roman theater architects formally studied or calculated crowd dynamics, versus relying on accumulated empirical knowledge passed down through generations of builders. While their success is evident in the surviving structures, the specific manuals or theoretical treatises on optimal vomitorium, sizing for theaters as opposed to the larger amphitheaters, are not clearly defined. The question of how much was formalized science and how much was ingenious trial and error remains an intriguing point of academic discussion. You wonder if they had a best practices scroll for getting people out of a show without a riot. If so, it's probably gathering dust in some forgotten archive, alongside the recipe for the world's best garum. You then drift westward, to the intellectual centers of ancient Greece and Rome, long after the classical grandeur we explored earlier. Here, amidst the bustling forums and quiet philosophical schools, new ways of thinking began to question the very basis of material offerings. You hear the voices of Stoic philosophers, emphasizing virtue, reason, and living in harmony with nature. For them, true piety lay not in the blood of an animal, but in a pure heart, a disciplined mind, and a life lived ethically. They argued that the gods, being perfect, would not truly need physical offerings, but rather appreciated the moral character of the worshipper. It's a shift from transactional religion to personal ethics, like realizing your parents would rather you be a good person than just send them a fruit basket. The atmosphere in the theater, even when full, is more contained, more focused than the raw energy of the amphitheater. The conversations are quieter, the attention more directed towards the stage. But when the play concludes, and the actors take their bows, the same efficient egress system swings into action. You rise with the rest of the audience, and the flow outwards is just as organized as the flow inwards. The broad staircases lead you back down into the curving ambulacra, and from there, out through the main arched exits into the cool night air. The process is swift and remarkably free of congestion. It's like a well-rehearsed choreography of departure. Thousands of bodies moving with a shared, almost unconscious rhythm. No pushing, no shoving, no accidental toga tripping. Mostly, you feel the intellectual rigor of these debates, the pursuit of logic and self-control. Philosophers like Pythagoras, long before this period, had even advocated for vegetarianism, rejecting the consumption of animal flesh entirely, thus by extension, challenging animal sacrifice. This intellectual current, though perhaps not mainstream for all, began to erode the unquestioned acceptance of blood offerings as the primary means of divine communication. It put a new emphasis on the intention behind the act, rather than the act itself. You feel the change in the air as you step out of the theater. The sounds of the city return, the distant murmur of life continuing. The scent of night-blooming jasmine might mingle with the lingering smells of the crowd. You reflect on how the Romans, with their pragmatic minds, ensured that even the seemingly simple act of leaving a public performance was a testament to their organizational prowess. They understood that a good experience wasn't just about the show itself. It was about the entire journey, from arrival to departure. It's like how a good airplane journey isn't just about the flight, but also about how quickly you get your luggage at the end. The Romans were good at the luggage part. But for people, the early Christians, emerging from a Jewish tradition steeped in temple sacrifice, also contributed to this fading. You hear stories of a singular ultimate sacrifice, that of Jesus Christ, which, in Christian theology, rendered all subsequent animal sacrifices unnecessary. The new covenant was spiritual, enacted through faith, baptism, and the symbolic communion of bread and wine. The ancient temple rituals, once central, were now seen as a prelude, a shadow of a greater spiritual reality. The emphasis shifted from the physical shedding of blood to the spiritual transformation of the individual. It was a divine reset button for all those animal budgets. The concept of karma in these traditions plays a significant role. Every action, good or bad, has consequences that ripple through time, affecting not only the current life but future existences. Offerings, when made, are often seen as acts of generosity, Dana, accumulating positive karma for the giver and contributing to their spiritual progress. It's a very different motivation than the Roman idea of appeasing angry gods to avoid immediate disaster. It's a long game, a cosmic savings account of good deeds, and probably much more relaxing than worrying about angry deities all the time. You feel the profound spiritual shift, the sense of a new era dawning. The Christian communities, often meeting in humble homes rather than grand temples, focused on prayer, communal meals, and acts of charity. The focus was on personal salvation, brotherly love, and a direct relationship with God, without the need for intermediaries or elaborate animal rituals. The very architecture reflected this change. No altars for sacrifice, but simple tables for shared meals, for communion. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums in the context of their theaters is that the common, salacious myth completely overshadows the elegant and profoundly practical engineering solutions designed for civic order and audience comfort. It's the truth that a mundane yet brilliant aspect of Roman urban planning was misinterpreted, denying them credit for a truly remarkable achievement in human logistics. You muse on how effortlessly a captivating, scandalous story can take root and flourish, even when the underlying reality is far more subtle and, frankly, more clever. It's almost comical how a word designed for efficient crowd management became synonymous with a bodily function usually best kept private. It's like calling a fire escape a flame disgorgement portal. Technically accurate, but wildly misleading. The sensory world reflects this transformation. The scent of incense still lingers, but now it's often more symbolic, less a cover for the smell of burning flesh. The sounds are less about the bellowing of sacrificial animals and more about quiet contemplation, prayer, or the gentle murmur of philosophical discussion. The visual landscape shifts from blood-stained altars to serene meditation gardens, simple churches, or a scholar's quiet study, illuminated by the soft glow of a lamp. It's a quieter but more inward-looking spirituality. You close your eyes, letting the image of the orderly Roman theater fade. You see the gentle incline of the staircases, the wide sweep of the corridors, the calm flow of people moving smoothly, almost silently, through the ancient stone. The whispers of the past are no longer about exaggerated tales of excess, but about the quiet brilliance of minds that understood how to bring order to immense crowds. And in that quiet understanding, you feel a deep, comforting sense of peace drifting off to sleep? The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums in this context is that the persistence of the myth not only trivializes Roman ingenuity, but also overshadows the far more significant historical shift that saw major civilizations across the globe move away from literal animal sacrifice towards more symbolic, ethical, and internally focused spiritual practices. A profound evolution in human morality and religious thought that reshaped societies. It's the truth that this sensationalized yet inaccurate detail about Roman excess distracts from the deeper, more meaningful narrative of changing human values and the complex reasons why ancient ritual practices eventually gave way to new forms of devotion. You muse on how a simple misunderstanding about a building can obscure centuries of profound spiritual and ethical development, a testament to humanity's ongoing quest for meaning. You feel a soft, lingering warmth from the ancient stone, a faint whisper of forgotten voices from the orderly theaters. As you settle deeper into your pillow, your mental journey shifts from grand architecture to the more intimate, yet equally fascinating social customs of ancient Rome. Tonight, you're going to step into the Roman dining room, not the noisy public arenas. You're about to glimpse the Roman feast, uncensored, separating the widespread gluttonous myth from the actual, more nuanced, ancient dining habits. Prepare to have some popular notions politely debunked. You close your eyes, letting the shifting landscapes of ancient thought fade into the gentle quiet of your own room. You see the serene faces of meditators, the earnest discussions of philosophers, and the quiet devotion of early congregants. The whispers of the past are no longer about dramatic rituals, but about the timeless human journey towards deeper understanding, greater compassion, and a more profound connection with the unseen. And in that quiet understanding, you feel a deep, comforting sense of peace, drifting off to sleep. You find yourself entering a lavish Roman villa, perhaps in Pompeii, or on a sprawling estate outside the bustling city of Rome itself. The air is warm, fragrant with the scent of roasted meats, herbs, and something subtly sweet, like honeyed wine. Soft lamplight flickers, casting dancing shadows on frescoes depicting mythological scenes or serene landscapes. You're not in a public building anymore. You're in a private, opulent space, designed for leisure and social interaction. This is where the Romans truly relaxed, entertained, and conducted much of their informal business. You feel the echoes of ancient philosophies and changing moralities softly dissipate, leaving you floating in the quiet present of your own mind. The grand temples, the misty groves, the bustling forums, and the tranquil shrines all merge into a distant, yet profoundly resonant, memory. Tonight, we're going to reflect on shadows in the modern mind, considering how these primal acts and their subsequent reinterpretations, though long past, continue to subtly resonate within our collective understanding of humanity and its intricate, sometimes unsettling, past. You observe the dining room, known as the triclinium, named for the three clini, or reclining couches, arranged around a central table. You see Romans dressed in their finest tunics and togas, reclining comfortably on these couches, propped up on their left elbows. Servants, quiet and efficient, move gracefully through the room, offering dishes and refilling cups. The scene is one of relaxed conviviality, not frenzied consumption. It's less a race to the bottom of the food pyramid and more a slow, leisurely culinary marathon. Without the running, which is good, because running after a big meal is rarely a good idea. You find yourself observing the present moment, yet with a newfound depth of vision, as if you can see the faint imprints of millennia-old practices on the modern world. The air is the familiar, comforting coolness of your room. But now, every interaction, every cultural reference seems to carry a whisper of the past. You realize that history isn't just a collection of facts. It's a living, breathing undercurrent that shapes our perceptions, our language, and even our humor. It's like seeing the subtle outlines of a hidden foundation beneath a gleaming new building. The structure is different, but the roots are still there. And sometimes those roots are weirder than you'd expect. The common historical fact is that Roman banquets, especially among the elite, were indeed long, multi-course affairs that could last for hours. But their primary purpose was social and political, not solely gluttonous overeating that required purging. These were opportunities for hosts to display their wealth and status, for guests to network, discuss philosophy, politics, and poetry, and for everyone to enjoy sophisticated entertainment. The food was certainly abundant and varied, but it was presented as part of an elaborate social ritual, not just as fuel for endless consumption. Think of it less like an all-you-can-eat buffet and more like a very, very long formal dinner party with excellent conversation and occasional interpretive dance. The common historical fact is that while overt, widespread animal sacrifice has largely ceased in most dominant global cultures, the underlying psychological, social, and linguistic frameworks that once supported such practices have often been sublimated or transformed into modern metaphors, rituals, and even societal scapegoating mechanisms. We may no longer lead a goat to an altar, but the concepts of making a sacrifice for a greater good, bearing a cross, or paying the price are deeply embedded in our vocabulary. The idea of a communal cleansing, a purging of ills, still finds expression in various forms, from annual cleanup campaigns to cultural cancellations. It's like we upgraded the software, but kept a lot of the old code, just repurposed. You watch as the first courses, the gustatio, are served. These are light appetizers: eggs, olives, salads, and perhaps some small, delicate fish. They are designed to whet the appetite, not to fill you up. The wine flows freely, but you notice that it's usually diluted with water. This wasn't because the Romans were teetotalers, far from it, but because drinking undiluted wine was considered barbaric. It allowed for prolonged consumption without quickly descending into a state of total inebriation, facilitating more coherent conversation and enjoyment of the evening. It's like they invented the concept of responsible drinking thousands of years ago. We probably should have paid more attention to that part. You might encounter the phrase sacrificing for the team in a corporate meeting, or hear someone talk about making a human sacrifice in a satirical or exasperated tone about a demanding boss. These aren't literal calls for blood, of course, but the words themselves carry the ancient weight of profound giving, often with an implication of pain or loss for a perceived benefit. It's an inherited vocabulary, passed down through countless generations, each time shedding a layer of its literal meaning, yet retaining its emotional punch. It's like finding a vintage phone, completely useless for calls, but still a neat reminder of how things once were. As the evening progresses, the main courses, the prime mense and secondae mense, are brought out. These are the showstoppers: roasted meats like boar or venison, exotic birds like peacock or flamingo, if the host was really showing off, seafood, and intricate dishes prepared with rich sauces and spices. The presentation is often as important as the food itself, with dishes molded into fantastic shapes or arranged to resemble landscapes. While there's plenty to eat, you don't see people cramming food down their throats. Instead, they pick at dishes, savor bites, and engage in lively conversation. It's a sensory experience, a slow unfolding of flavors and aromas, punctuated by bursts of laughter and debate. You consider the persistent fascination with ancient Roman vomitoriums. Despite overwhelming evidence debunking the myth, why does this particular falsehood cling so tenaciously to the popular imagination? It speaks to a modern fascination with excess, with sensationalism, and perhaps a subconscious desire to imagine a past that was simultaneously grand and disgustingly decadent. This myth feeds into a narrative of ancient depravity that, oddly enough, makes us feel a little bit better about our own modern indulgences. Well, at least we don't do that, we might think, conveniently overlooking our own less glamorous excesses. It's a comforting fiction, a story we want to believe, because it paints a stark, entertaining contrast. Like believing your cat understands complex astrophysics, it's just more fun than the truth. An obscure detail about Roman banquets is the inclusion of specific intercourse activities or subtle palate cleansers designed to refresh the senses and aid digestion, rather than facilitate purging. For instance, hosts might offer small, bitter herbs, or a sip of particularly tart wine between richer courses, believed to stimulate digestion. Sometimes, short periods of music or light entertainment would be introduced, allowing guests a pause from eating to rest and enjoy the performance, almost like a sensory reset button. It was about sustaining comfort and enjoyment over many hours, not creating a cycle of consumption and expulsion. It's like when you eat too much at Thanksgiving and then someone suggests a short walk. Except in Rome, that walk might involve a poet reciting epic verse. An obscure detail about this modern resonance is that the architectural term vomitorium itself, though incorrectly associated with purging, unintentionally evokes the very visceral, almost uncontrollable human experience of crowds being poured out or spewed forth from a massive structure. A kinetic image that perfectly captures the sense of overwhelming force and collective movement. The word, despite its misinterpretation, holds a powerful onomatopoeic quality, describing the intense, almost bodily sensation of a packed stadium emptying. It's a linguistic coincidence that contributes to the myth's sticky nature, giving it a guttural, unforgettable quality. It's like when a word just sounds like what it means, even if it's technically about something else. Like gobsmacked? You lean closer, observing the subtle rhythm of the feast. It's a testament to the Romans' sophisticated understanding of hospitality and dining as an art form. They weren't just thinking about filling bellies, they were crafting an entire evening's experience, designed for maximum enjoyment and social connection. They wanted you to linger, to converse, to be impressed, and ultimately, to want to come back. Not to sprint to the nearest, vomitorium, because you couldn't take another bite. You imagine standing at the exit of a modern sports arena, as thousands of fans surge through the tunnels, a tide of humanity moving with incredible force. The term vomitorium, though wrong in its popular usage, feels right in describing that powerful, unstoppable outflow. This visceral connection, divorced from its true historical meaning, is part of why the myth persists. It resonates with a modern experience of urban crowds and large-scale events, making a false history feel strangely familiar. It makes you wonder how many other words we're using incorrectly just because they feel right. Historians still debate the true prevalence and social acceptance of actual overindulgence and forced purging within Roman aristocratic society. While literary sources from the period, particularly satires, often depict scenes of excessive gluttony and even self-induced vomiting, it is unclear to what extent these portrayals were exaggerated for comedic or moralistic effect versus being widespread. Factual accounts of typical behavior. The question of whether such extreme acts were rare aberrations of a few notoriously decadent individuals or a more common, if discreet, practice among the elite remains a fascinating point of academic discussion. You wonder if they had their own version of reality TV back then, and these extreme accounts were just the ancient equivalent of viral content. Probably. Historians still debate the ethical implications of allowing popular historical myths, especially those that sensationalize or misrepresent, to persist in common culture, versus the constant effort required to correct them. Is there a point where a myth becomes so entrenched that it's more culturally impactful than the truth? And what responsibility do academics have to engage with popular narratives, even when those narratives are fundamentally flawed? The ongoing struggle between historical accuracy and cultural narrative remains a vibrant, sometimes frustrating, area of academic discussion. You wonder if there's a secret historians club that just sighs collectively every time the vomitorium myth pops up again. Probably. As the main courses give way to the second-day mense, the dessert course, the atmosphere mellows further. Fruits, nuts, honey cakes, and sweet wines are served. The conversations might become more intimate, the laughter softer. You notice that guests are not leaving the table throughout the evening, except perhaps for necessary trips to the latrine, certainly not to a designated purging room. The idea that Romans would regularly leave a feast to vomit and then return to eat more is largely a misconception, stemming from a misreading of historical texts and a confusion with the architectural vomitorium. It would be like saying modern diners step out of a restaurant to use the digestion exit. It just doesn't make sense. You notice how stories of great sacrifice still dominate our narratives. From the heroic soldier falling on a grenade to save comrades, to the parent working tirelessly to provide for their children. The theme of relinquishing something precious for a greater good is universally celebrated. These modern sacrifices are no longer about blood on an altar, but about time, energy, personal desires, or even life itself. They tap into that ancient wellspring of understanding that true value often comes with a cost, that profound acts of giving define heroism and love. It's a continuum of human experience, stripped of its ritualistic trappings, yet retaining its core emotional power, and it's like the spiritual successor to an ancient tradition, without all the messy bits. The true Roman feast was a carefully orchestrated event, a ritual of social bonding and display. The Romans valued virtues, a concept encompassing virtue, courage, and excellence. And while they appreciated luxury, public displays of uncontrolled gluttony would have often been seen as un-Roman, lacking in dignity and moderation. Of course, there were always exceptions, famous figures known for their excesses, but these were often highlighted precisely because they were exceptions, not the norm. It's like judging an entire society by the behavior of a few celebrity chefs who make weird, artistic food. Most people just want a good pizza. The very concept of a scapegoat also carries echoes of ancient sacrificial practices, particularly from the Hebrew tradition, where a goat was literally laden with the sins of the community and driven into the wilderness. Today, when a politician or a celebrity is canceled or blamed for systemic failures, you see a modern, often metaphorical, form of this ancient ritual played out in the public sphere. We project collective anxieties and frustrations onto an individual or group, hoping that their symbolic exile will somehow cleanse the community. It's a deeply ingrained human tendency to find a target for blame, a way to purge collective guilt, even if it's just digitally. It's like online lynching, but with much less physical effort. You hear the soft strumming of a lyre from a corner of the room, or perhaps the lilting voice of a poet reciting verses. Dancers might entertain, or philosophers might engage in spirited debates. The sensory tapestry of the Roman feast is rich, the taste of complex flavors, the scent of exotic spices, the feel of soft cushions and fine linens, the sight of intricate dishes and beautiful art, and the sound of intelligent conversation and melodious entertainment. It's a far cry from the crude image of a room dedicated to purging. It sounds, honestly, but a lot more pleasant. Even if the food occasionally featured dormice, the persistence of these linguistic and conceptual echoes highlights humanity's fundamental psychological needs. We still seek meaning in suffering, purpose in giving, and a way to deal with collective anxieties. The forms have changed dramatically, from Bronze Age altars to digital platforms, but the underlying human patterns of seeking order, understanding, and cleansing remain remarkably consistent. The ancient past isn't truly gone, it's simply morphed, adapted, and woven itself into the fabric of the present. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums in the context of their feasts is that the sensational myth of Roman excess and institutionalized purging has completely overshadowed the actual, more complex, and often quite refined social rituals of their banquets. It's the truth that a simple lexical misunderstanding, combined with a desire for a dramatic narrative, has distorted our perception of daily Roman life and their dining habits. You muse on how a single word can create an entire false reality in the collective consciousness, leading generations to believe in something that was primarily a satirical exaggeration or a misinterpretation. It's almost as if someone told you that break a leg actually meant you were supposed to physically injure yourself before a performance. It's a joke, a figure of speech, or in this case, a misused architectural term. The sensory details of this modern resonance are subtle, almost imperceptible. The faint hum of your laptop, the soft glow of a screen displaying news headlines that echo ancient themes, the murmur of distant traffic that feels like the endless flow of crowds. You hear the language we use, dissecting its layers of meaning, seeing the historical shadows in our contemporary behaviors. It's a quiet, intellectual journey that reveals the surprising continuity of human nature, making the distant past feel incredibly close. You close your eyes, the warmth of the imagined triclinium fading into the comfortable coolness of your own room. You see not a scene of vulgar excess, but one of dignified leisure, flowing wine, and lively discussion. The whispers of the past are no longer about exaggerated tales of Roman gluttony, but about the true art of their hospitality and social interaction. And in that quiet understanding, you feel a deep, comforting sense of peace, drifting off to sleep. The terrible truth about the ancient Roman vomitoriums in this final context is that the enduring myth distracts us from the truly profound and continuous evolution of human morality and social understanding. By fixating on a sensationalist, inaccurate detail that obscures how ancient patterns of thought about sacrifice, communal cleansing, and assigning blame have transformed and continue to subtly shape our modern world, often in ways we don't even realize. It's the truth that by dwelling on a historical triviality, we miss the deeper, more impactful narrative of how humanity has grappled with its fundamental needs and fears across millennia. A far more compelling story than any misguided architectural interpretation. You muse on the hidden histories that lie just beneath the surface of everyday life, waiting to be quietly uncovered. You feel the lingering scent of imagined Roman banquets, the phantom taste of honeyed wine, as the subtle hum of your room pulls you further into the quiet of the night. You've journeyed through grand architectural marvels and refined dining customs, gently peeling back the layers of misconception. Now, as you sink deeper into comfort, we're going to explore another fascinating aspect of Roman life, one that has also been intertwined, perhaps unfairly, with the myth of the vomitorium, their approach to health, hygiene, and purification. Tonight, you'll learn about ancient remedies, modern misconceptions, discovering the actual tools and practices they used, distinctly separate from any architectural feature. And now, as the last echoes of these ancient truths and modern reflections softly fade, you feel the gentle weight of your blankets, the cool kiss of the air, and the slow, rhythmic beat of your own heart. The grand arenas, the silent bogs, the serene temples, and the bustling cities of the past all melt into the vast, calming ocean of dreams. There's no need to rush, no need to hold on. Just let the quiet thoughts drift away, like wisps of smoke in the night air. The journey through history is complete for now, and all that's left is the comforting embrace of sleep. Allow yourself to sink deeper into the stillness, letting every muscle relax, every thought quiet down. The mysteries of the past are safely tucked away, ready for another time, another night. For now, simply breathe and rest. You find yourself standing amidst the bustling, yet remarkably well-organized, public baths of ancient Rome. This isn't just a place for getting clean, it's a social hub, a veritable community center where Romans from all walks of life gathered. You hear the splashing of water, the low murmur of conversations, the rhythmic scraping of the strigil against skin, and perhaps the faint, distant grunting of someone lifting weights in the exercise yard. The air is thick with steam, carrying the scent of oils, perfumes, and damp stone. Light filters in through high, arched windows, illuminating the intricate mosaics on the walls and floors. This is a place of health, social connection, and bodily care, far removed from any imagined room of purging. It's like a spa, a gym, and a coffee shop all rolled into one, but without the annoying Wi-Fi.